Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you want to know what it is? It is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
All right, rise and shine, family. Welcome to the first session of the Deprogram. Session 1, lose your mind. So before we talk about how you lose your mind, we got to talk about how you got your mind. But first, let's talk about what is your mind. It says it is the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and to feel, the faculty of consciousness and thought. So that's of course the definition of what the mind is. The synonyms are brain, intelligence, intellect, brain power, okay, intellectual capabilities, wits, understanding, reasoning, judgment, remember that one, judgment, sense, remember that one, okay, and also a person's intellect. So we understand now what the mind is. So let's talk about how you got your mind. I want you to imagine being a baby, okay, having no clue what the world is and being thrown completely in water. You know, many animals, when they're thrown in water through the trauma or just learning on the spot, they're able to learn to swim. So just imagine being this baby thrown into this water, and now you're panicking, and all of a sudden you're having to learn to swim. But just think about how cold the water feels at first, all of that. And just think about how much more comfortable you begin to feel as you begin to keep your head above water and get comfortable with it. This is how we were thrown into the matrix. We were born into this world, and we just had to learn to swim. So the water, like the water molecules that move through your fingers as you're trying to stay afloat, those become the words, the religions, the racisms, things like that we subscribe ourselves to, trying to stay afloat by attaching ourselves to these identities. And what you notice about this water is that it's fluid. Not just in the sense of the word as in it's liquid, but you can't grab onto it, just like you can't grab onto any of these religions and concepts that we have been given to survive off of. So we've learned how to swim into something that is completely uncontrollable. It is not our world. It is not our realm, our matrix. We just learn to survive in it. Okay, so as this water slips through your hand, just like any religion or any God that you try to seek out by name that man has given you, you start to understand that there has to be more to it than this. And what you begin to learn is that having these religions and different races and different words, they have brought about separation. And now you're the furthest thing from knowing that you're connected. If I were to say, what is this item here? Many of you would say clock, or the inside of a clock, the mechanism of a clock. We would all know that. But this is just as much a clock as the face of the clock. The outside is the inside. It's amazing because when you look at things like a clock and how it has been created to tell time, you realize that this isn't even real. There is no such thing. That the world does. We don't have 24 hours in a day. We don't have 365 days in a year, ever. But we've learned to follow this system. But just speaking of this clock, every single piece of this clock is as much this clock as the hands are on this clock, which is what you use to tell time. So a person may think that the hands are the most important because that's what he or she reads. This isn't true. You know, and like that clock, we have insides that do not mirror our outsides, but they are absolutely identical, as you cannot have one without the other. It makes us complete. But when you're referring to your hand, you say it's my hand, my head, my body. So then who are you, right? Who are you if this is your body? Where are you? You know, what I've learned in life is that we tend to blame our being or our life on circumstances outside of ourselves. Things tend to happen to us rather than being under our control. So let's be honest, we're here because of our parents, right? Because they decided to have sex, right, and create us. So we deem them responsible for doing things that a parent should do, take care of us, all the way down to thunderstorms. These things are happening to us, right? A stomach ache, a disease. These things are happening to us. Even our parents take on this same mindset. I call it a mindset because it was given to us. These type of things were given to us. But they take on the same mindset, deeming themselves or claiming that they brought you into this world, and now they can take you out solely because they brought you in. You know, they give you a name and they expect you to identify with that name. In fact, if you start acting quote unquote out of nature or out of character, they'll say, that's your brother or that's your sister. That's not you. And so they're constantly pushing you into the character that is now going to become you. And so now you have to become your name. And not only that, you get comfortable when people give you their names. Hi, I'm such and such. And by giving you a name, now you feel more comfortable. But what is the name really? Many people have the same names. So names can't speak to character, and they can't speak to you. They can't identify you at all. In fact, many people today are manipulated by their names.
It's James.
Who has the Jim in that family? Or the James?
Is the Jimmy or James connected?
Of either Mary, Margaret.
Is there a Mary person, like a Marie, a Mary?
Got a connection to Mary. I'm getting Marie, Mary, Maria.
And who is the MR name? Mark, Mary, Marie.
I feel he's like a J.
He's also showing me a J.
No.
Is he J-A or J-U? Or is he not John or J? I don't know the name. Jerry, Jeffrey?
Jez.
Jez. Okay, close enough. I don't know that I get that.
No.
Because or the James.
Or J.
Is it J sounding?
Or G, it could be G.
Her sister Jerry?
But the J or G name like Jack or James? They're telling me to talk about the J or G connection. There's a J or G name that they want you to highlight.
Is there a J or G in that name, like Marjorie?
Or G like George or Jerry comes up. Weird. Are you the J or G sounding name like Janie or Joni? Who is the J name?
It's a J or G.
Giovanni, but we call him Johnny.
Jim. Judith.
My name's Jay.
These type of code reading tactics are used to manipulate millions of people out of millions of dollars every day. Mary for female and James for a man are the most popular names in America. And yet many people are manipulated by this stuff because they believe they are their names. And when I say we are all universally connected, I imagine all of you guys seeing different words. You're finding different words. You probably found your name on that last slide. But you see a word, right? You see this word. Because the words are together in a spell in which you understand. But if you were to break these letters up a bit, and just into a pile of letters, you would start to pay less attention because there's no way for you to put it together. And this is kind of like what religion's like. You know, a lot of these constructs are like that we have subscribed to. When you begin to look into them, they don't make any sense. You know, and then you start to realize how you need to pull away from it. It's just programming. Even right now, I know your mind is like, what is this that I see? You probably don't even care. But these are, of course, Chinese characters. This is the way their programming works. They understand these as words and phrases as sentences, where we understand what we call letters. Now you have a little bit better understanding, as it tells you Tai, Yu, San, Z, Kain, B. Now I'm probably saying that wrong because they would have a different pronunciation for the words that they use. We don't have the same sounding of our words. It's a totally different matrix, right? But as this continues on, you're going to be able to see the code. It says he has 3 pencils. Now you're within full understanding of what that spell meant. But this is just a way to communicate, right? This is just a way to communicate. What we're calling a pencil is just natural elements, wood and lead. But we found a way to identify it. And this is what I mean by spell casting. You know, when you come up with words and you ascribe meaning to words, it's easily to make people believe that those words are a reality. People write things in books, even now, that we believe is a reality, actually happened because it's written down. So it's not like a magic trick, seem, solid beam, like on Johnny Quest. But, you know, when you read these spells to people, you can put them in a trance and put them under your will, i.e. religion. right? And so whenever you have these type of spells cast on you, they can make you completely alluded as to these perspectives onto the world. I talked about earlier how we believe that, we're here due to our parents. It's our parents' fault. But what if we were that gleam in our parents' eye that caused them to want sex at that moment with our parent, with our other parent? You see what I'm saying? What if we were the gleam in our father's eyes that caused them to want our mother at that moment because we wanted to be born? Our senses are even controlled and regulated through programming. If we touch something and it's cold, of course it's cold, but the word we use is, cold. Our judgment, because we're taught to use the word cold. We judge things according to our programming. Black is bad or cursed, and white is pure and holy. Red is passion. And so we have all these meanings that even go with colors, of course, that also came from our matrix. And the thing is that when you're that blinded by your matrix, you don't know what's real, right? So when you see red and your mind automatically sees red, you don't know that that's a part of the matrix and that red doesn't exist as a word, right? Someone else would call it something else. That's how we identify with it. And even the fact that you see red doesn't make it a fact. The way our eyes work is it works off light reflecting. So all we're really seeing is light, right? This light comes into our brain and then we break it down into what we're seeing. So our senses have to do with the matrix because our senses have to come into our mind. Sounds, things like that. Like there are made up sounds now that we can that are not natural sounds, like say a gunshot. And if you hear it, you automatically know what it is because to you that's part of your matrix and your reality based on where you grew up living. And sound is the same way. When you hear something, it goes to your brain for you to break down what it is. And so we have to really get control of our minds so we can understand how to rationalize what it is we're seeing in this world. Listen, we believe that dead flowers are romantic. We believe that opening a car door makes a person a gentleman, outside of how this person truly treats you. We live in a world that if a person can't express himself or herself in an intellectual way, you wouldn't even know they loved you. If a person said, I love this person, tell me how much you love this person. If they could not put it into words, you wouldn't believe it. But if they could put it in the best words, you would say that they absolutely love that person. We need to be able to see deeper than how we've been programmed to see, because words, things like races, things like culture, things like gender has separated us, and it's going to continue to separate us if we do not wake up from the programming. Okay, family, it is time to see the world for what it is. There's this story about this snake. This snake bumps into this saw inside of a garage, and he thought the saw was trying to attack him, so he bites this saw. Right? Bites it, and then it hurts even more. So now the snake wraps himself around this saw, attempting to squeeze the life out of this saw, right? Thinking that this saw was attacking him. Okay? This saw was an inanimate object, and this snake did not know because he felt real pain whenever he was, in this quarrel with this saw. This snake ended up dying. What is inanimate? Not alive, especially not in the manner of animals and humans, showing no sign of life or lifeless. A lot of us spend so much time staring at the past, something that is absolutely inanimate, and it takes over our present time, our future, clouds our mind with this anger and pain, and we need to learn to move past that, to be able to look at these things objectively. They're inanimate. They're not for you to be angry about. There are no such things as roadmaps, okay? We don't have to separate each other by where you're from and which demographical area you're from, country and whatnot. I want you guys to really consider the flea. The flea can jump 14 inches or 200 times its height, 200 times its size, rather. And when they are put in a jar for a certain amount of time, their abilities are limited, not just for the time frame. When this scientist removes this jar, these fleas will no longer be able to jump over the jar. And not just for a time frame, forever. Not only that, their offspring will also only be able to jump that high. They have now ruined or tapered off a whole generation just by mental control. Now that should make you think, how do we know that this hasn't already been done to us? This is why we need to deprogram. Be evolution, be the change you want to see, And that's it for session 1, Lose Your Mind. Peace, family.